a point here in the metric where the enemy has gotten so naked about world government, their planetary plan, that the credibility of everyone opposing it, especially those that have been around for a long time, is exploding. The listenership, the viewership, the readership. I don't know. I haven't asked Schneider, but I bet people visiting his sites exploded. Because, and we're going to ask him right now, we're riding a rocket, folks. The globalists want to take us on an express elevator to hell. We want to go on an express elevator to a free market heaven. And believe me, free markets create incredible wealth, incredible innovation. They also then create incredible decadence and spoiled, rotten children. If we're going to have a free market, we've got to have children that aren't decadent, that are made to work, that aren't given everything, or we turn into what we've got here. A bunch of stupid, arrogant chumps. Not everybody, but a large portion. Let's admit it. We are exceptionally stupid, exceptionally fat, exceptionally dumb, exceptionally mindless, exceptionally sick. We are a mentally ill, sick society. I mean, my God, they heat hospitals with dead babies. We're growing humanoids inside cows to harvest their organs, MIT. I mean, it's all happening. Just admit we're screwed. And then let's get out of it. Okay? Going back to Michael Schneider. Michael, thank you for joining us while I went over those rants there. You got the floor. Break down from your deep research exactly where we are, how bad the collapse is going to be, and what we've got to watch for. We know they're announcing world government planetary SDR currency that's digital. The dum-dums will say, where's the new currency we're supposed to get? Your dollar will now be based in it. What do we do to stop this?
Well, Alex, what we're looking for is patterns. And for example, in the last thing that we talked about, the Baltic Dry Index and how it crashed before previous crashes. Another thing, though, for your watchers and viewers to look for is junk bonds. Junk bonds crashed hard. If you look at a chart of junk bonds, they crashed hard before the crash of 2008. That was before stocks did, because when a financial crisis is coming, you would expect the trouble to show up in firms that are more leveraged, that are riskier, that are more vulnerable. And that's exactly what we saw in 2008. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. So the last recession ended, and there's a ETF that I watch very, very closely. It's known as JNK. And after the last recession, well, it crashed hard before the stock market crashed, then it rebounded. And ever since that time, it's traded in a range of about 36 to 42. And I knew that if it ever dropped below 35, that would be confirmation that a new financial crisis had begun. And it never did all those years that I've been writing until December. In December, this past December, it finally crossed below 35. It went below 34. Then now it's gone below 33. And briefly this week during the panic, it dropped below 32. But junk bonds are crashing right now, just as we would expect before a major stock market crash here in the US and around the world. So that's a huge warning sign. Another huge warning sign is the price of oil. You know, we've seen the price of oil crash just like we did in 2008. If people remember, it shot up to about $140 a barrel, then crashed really hard to below $40 a barrel for a short period of time. And that was before the great stock market crash of 2008. Now it's happening again. Over the last 18 months, we've seen the price of oil go from $108 a barrel all the way this week, it dipped well below $30 a barrel. This is the only other time in all of history, other than 2008, when we've seen this happen. Now, a lot of people may think, well, the price of oil is good. I can go to the store, I can fill up my tank really cheaply, less than $2 a gallon. This is good for me. Well, it's really bad for the U.S. economy and the global economy. In fact, just since the start of 2015, we've seen 42 North American energy companies go bankrupt. We've seen more than 130,000 good-paying energy jobs lost, and that's really bad news because the energy industry was the primary engine for the growth of good-paying jobs.
Texas is plunging.
Now that's completely reversing. So we're seeing an implosion of these jobs, you know, this is putting a tremendous amount of stress on the financial sector because a lot of these fracking companies, the oil companies, the energy companies, they wanted to drill, drill, drill. So they went out and got all kinds of loans from the big banks, financial institutions. Now those loans are going bad. And so these big banks, you know, in fact, just this week, we saw some of the biggest banks in the United States come out and say, yeah, we're starting to set more money aside to cover these bad loans because the energy sector is in a massive amount of trouble. Another thing we saw just before the last financial crisis was a crash in the price of industrial commodities. I'm talking about tin, iron ore, lead, aluminum, copper especially. If you look at a chart of copper in 2008, crashed hard before stocks did. And then it's happening again. Toward the second half of last year, I was warning my readers about this and all these other patterns that we saw that are happening again. Because these are huge red flags. There's so many of them, Alex, right now. In fact, if I was going to make up a textbook scenario for what a financial crisis would look like, all the boxes are ticked. All the technical indicators are there. Another one is the surging US dollar. You know, a lot of people who come on and they talk about the coming economic collapse, they talk about the death of the dollar, and that's coming, but we're not there yet. But what we've seen in recent months is the US dollar absolutely surge.
Everyone rushes out of the other smaller sinking ships.
Because what happens is during the boom years, all these emerging markets like Brazil and all around the world, they went into tremendous amounts of debt. They took out all these loans denominated in US dollars. Well, now US dollar has surged, so it's taking much, much more of their own local currencies to pay back and service these debts. Meanwhile, the things they export, oil, commodities, other things have gone way down. So this double whammy is just killing these emerging markets. So the exact same conditions that created the Latin American debt crisis of the 1980s, the Asian financial crisis of the 1990s, and that we saw just before the great crash of 2008, it's killing emerging markets all around the world. For example, down in Brazil, the 7th largest economy on the entire planet, Goldman Sachs says that they're not just in a recession. Goldman Sachs says they're in an outright depression, Alex.
That's right, my friend. And the allegory or the analogy for this is you got a bunch of ships, they're on fire, they're sinking. There's a bigger ship, the biggest ship. It's got problems. It's got some fires on board, but it's seen as the safest. So everybody starts crawling out of those other sinking ships and going into the dollar, going into the bonds, going into the national treasuries. And so it's the last to sink and blow up, but will be the most spectacular, many analysts believe. But China, with 1,300,000,000 people, most of them forced off rural land, basically into slave factories. It is a time bomb. Latin America is a time bomb. Africa is a time bomb. The Middle East is a collapsing time bomb. And the global elites admit they're going into all these revolutions and all these places where 50% of the metric of their paychecks is now going to food. You pass that metric historically, you get revolution, you get rioting. The elite are purposely turning off the food. Then they're going to open the borders, flood us with massive third world, use that crisis to set up a police state, create a welfare state for those people, weaponize them. I mean, what's crazy is you can see the engineers of this who are meeting at Davos, the George Soroses, actually captaining it and bragging. I mean, Hillary said, State Department's done a great job in Syria. She said, we've done a great job in Libya, great job in Syria just this last month in December. They're telling you this is what I meant to do. They meant to wreck the world. They meant to turn radical jihadis loose. They mean to bring them in. They mean to let them attack and then take our rights. So more attacks, their answer is take our guns. A jihadi shot a cop in Philadelphia. I mean, you can see it, but it really is the ignorance of the public that has allowed this to happen. What's going to happen, though, when the welfare checks still go out, when the EBT cards still work, but they don't buy what they did before, or the food's not on the shelves like we're already seeing in the shopping for Snowmageddon. I mean, with this ignorant, domesticated population, the Pentagon estimates, as you know, that within about 7 to 8 days, most people will steal. Within about 11 days, most people will kill. 90+% of people, it's about 98 in some of the studies, will begin within 15 days going to cannibalism. Now, imagine the scenario in a real collapse when the Pentagon admits that a Carrington event from the sun that blew out a lot of our electronics and power, that 90% of the America would be dead within 2 years. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's on the bad end, is a Viggo Mortensen Rhodes scenario versus what we see Venezuela and, you know, just squalor, rioting, death, murder, crime rates up 3,000%, 4,000%. I mean, any way you slice this, we are headed into crazy town.
Oh, we absolutely are. Just look at the Snowmageddon. You know, 2 or 3 days in advance, people are pulling all the milk, all the bread off the shelves, you know, just over a snowstorm. So when a real disaster strikes, what are things going to look like in America? Because, you know, desperate people do desperate things, and people are going to become desperate because what we're moving into right now is going to be so similar to, in the initial stages, to 2008. If people remember, there was a great credit crunch when panic and fear grip the financial markets, all of a sudden the banks and the financial institutions, they don't want to lend to each other. They don't want to lend to anyone else. And everything in our society.
But don't worry, they've got a plan to take over all the small banks and everybody and give themselves trillions. And I remember going to soccer games with my kids, watching my son play, and suddenly all the dads had the newspapers out and their phones caring about finances. But then I told them, they're going to pump it back up, but then it's going to get even worse. They don't listen to that. I mean, people just don't listen. Go ahead.
Oh, it's true, Alex. And since the last time around, you know, our politicians, they came out and they said, we're going to fix too big to fail. But no, did they fix it? Of course not. Instead, the too big to fail banks, I'm talking about Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, you know, collectively, they've gotten 40% larger. Meanwhile, 1,400 smaller banks have totally gone out of existence. So the problem of too big to fail is now bigger than ever. Now, when this next crisis comes and the credit crunch comes and all of a sudden people can't get the, you know, the loans, the mortgages, the credit cards, what we're going to see is if you have a business or you're working somewhere, you're going to notice fewer people are coming in. And when they come in, they're going to have not as much money to spend. And so what we're going to see businesses cut back. We're going to see stores close. In fact, we just saw Walmart announce the closing of 269 stores worldwide. We're going to see workers laid off. We're going to see unemployment skyrocket because most people are living.
And we're going to see crime explode.
Yeah, we're already seeing rates of violent crime explode. You know, it's up 19% in Los Angeles over the past year. Other cities, double-digit.
And this is key. This is key. Crime has gone down massively, they admit, mainly because of gun proliferation in good people's hands. So you're going to see huge numbers of gun deaths go up, but it's going to be criminals getting shot. They're then going to hype that and say, take the guns. That's why they're doing a new big gun push right now, because they know crime's exploding and the criminal class on top and below, as above, so below, cannot stand seeing us stand up against them.
Yeah, and we saw a similar pattern in Nazi Germany and Communist China and the Soviet Union. When they want to bring in tyranny, they want to come grab all the guns. So no one can be upset, no one can resist, no one can put up a fight. And so that's what Barack Obama wants to do. Just like we've seen, it's a different package, but it's the same thing. But we are going to see civil unrest in this country as things fall apart. We are going to see, and already they're fueling the racial tensions, the racial riots, even with this Academy Awards thing. You know, they're priming the pump. And so I believe we're headed for a period of crime, riots, craziness in this country.
No doubt, and that's the key. The key is that on record, the globalists have already tested this in other countries. They're exacerbating it by design. They'll hang out in Switzerland and New Zealand while we're all killing each other. They have engineered this. The answer is having the state stand up, recognize what's happening, not go along with the central government and this global plan. They are walking us into a plan to further bring us to our knees, get us all scared, and have us acquiesce to all of their globalist demands and thank the engineers of all these problems for, quote, saving us, as the Davos people that own half the stuff in the world through fraud on record lecture us about class warfare and class envy and promote class warfare and socialism. I mean, the public has got to wake up to this ball game. The bigger the socialism gets, the bigger the taxes, the more programs, the worse the jobs get, the worse the education gets, the less opportunities you have, and the richer these people get. Understand me, viewers and listeners. Mexico, just Google this, has the largest share of billionaires of any country in the world. Mexico's only 130 million people. They have more billionaires than any other country. It's because Mexico wrote the book on colonialism, post-colonialism. You have a tiny elite that literally use those people as slaves. And you look at the Mexican Congress, you want to talk about racism, they are whiter than I am, folks, most of the Congress. And they got names like Schmidt and all the rest of it. Okay, you need, because the Austro-Hungarian Empire ran Mexico. They still do. And that's why Mexico attacked us in World War I. The point is you want to live like Mexico, folks? Get ready for it. Okay, that's their plan. In fact, guys, just type in Mexico has the highest share of billionaires in the world. I know that's a fact because I've seen it many times. But go ahead, Mr. Schneider.
Oh, you're exactly right, Alex. A lot of times the elite, they advance their agenda through crisis, then every single solution they give us results in more money and more power in their hands, more globalization, more centralization. And so you look at this report that Oxfam just put out. You know, you go back to 2010 and 388 members of the elite had as much money as the poorest half of the world. Now it's down to 62. 62 members of the global elite have as much wealth as the bottom 3.5 billion members of humanity have. And so it's increasing. The debt-based system around the world, it funnels money to the very top. You know, every solution they come in, it just pushes more money, more power their way. Meanwhile, Oxfam found that the bottom half of the world, they've actually gotten a lot poorer since over the past few years. So global income inequality is increasing, and the power and money is being concentrated at the very, very top increasingly. So the elite have gotten even more powerful, even more control, and yet they're not satisfied. They're going to bring in more crisis to advance their agenda even more, the problem, reaction, solution paradigm that they love to use. And so now they want to go for the big one, bring the middle class, especially in the United States, to their knees so that they can take us much farther down the road to their new world order.
Most of the InfoWars radio listening audience is aware of the high-quality, affordable firearms available that are made right here in America at hdfirearms.com. One of the most exciting things about hdfirearms.com is the ability to upgrade your AR-15 platform today. They call it their low-profile platform, PVX muzzle brakes, proven to help control muzzle rise. 6061 billet material with Type 3 hard coating. Bolt carrier group for 308 and 556 ARs. Custom Kydex holsters, ideal for concealed carry with .080 thick Kydex to ensure durability. Most competitors' material use .060. Configure yours today at hdfirearms.com. And my favorite, single stage trigger, a home run upgrade for your AR-15 and AR-10 platforms. Find out more at hdfirearms.com today or call 770-485-7015. That's hdfirearms.com or call 770-485-7015.